Everyone thought she was a poor house girl until she opened the gates to a palace.
A dusty morning. The sun hung low over the horizon like a watching eye. The pickup truck sputtered to a stop at the edge of the compound. Its engine wheezed, coughed, and died. Out stepped a man. Tall, handsome, and draped in a sky blue senator suit. His shoes were polished, his lips chapped. His eyes scanned the courtyard like someone searching for something he wasn't sure he had lost. Children paused their marble game. A goat bleated and wandered off. One of the compound's elders raised his head slowly from under the neem tree and muttered, "Nawa, city rat, don't come back." He walked into the house, his suitcase thudding against the tiled steps. Nobody greeted him. Nobody needed to. This was Ugo Chuku, the prodigal brother who had sent money, but not once came home to bury their mother. The compound was full of women, his late father's wives, daughters, nieces, and the new housemaid who was crouched by the water basin, back turned, wrapped in a faded wrapper, scrubbing yam stains from a tray. She did not turn when he passed. "Where's Chidi?" he asked nobody in particular. One of the wives, Mama Ada, clicked her tongue and pointed toward the inner room. "Your brother Day inside, but his leg—" She trailed off. He walked in, saw Chidi's crutch leaning against the wall, saw the way his once bright-eyed brother now sat, lips dark, eyes dull. "You came," Chidi said quietly. Ugo only nodded. His mouth felt dry. The air inside the house was thick. The wall fan turned slowly, slicing the silence in slow motion. And outside, the housegirl scrubbed with quiet fingers, as if the story was not beginning with her. That night, Ugo couldn't sleep. Something about her bothered him. The way her hands moved, her silence, the quiet pride in her walk, even as she poured out wastewater. She wasn't like the others. He watched from the window as she stood under the mango tree, gazing at the moon as though waiting for it to speak. "Who is she?" he asked Mama Ada the next morning. The girl, named Naijioma, or so she said, came 2 weeks ago. No family, no tribe she wants to claim, but she works, doesn't complain, just keeps to herself. That evening, Ugo Chuku approached her. She was pounding ogbono seeds. "I've never seen anyone pound that fine," he said, attempting a smile. She looked at him briefly. "Because you've never looked properly." He was stunned by the boldness, the tone, the melody of her accent, not thick like the village girls, not clipped like the city ones. Something royal, cloaked in poverty. Days passed. He began to notice more. Her hands, no calluses. Her nails, neatly trimmed. Her handwriting, royal script. And then one morning, he saw it. An anklet. Gold, delicate, but unmistakably real. She was sweeping, and the wrapper had shifted just enough to reveal it. He noticed him looking and quickly pulled the wrapper back down. But it was too late. He stared. She walked away. No words, no panic, just dignity. And in his heart, a whisper began. "Who is she?" Mama Ada pulled her aside 2 nights later. "Young girl," she said, "tell me the truth. Where did you come from? Your feet are too soft to have walked to this compound." Ajioma did not flinch. She continued washing. "I came from a house that no longer belongs to me." "Did you run?" "No, I left." "From what?" "From becoming what they wanted me to be."
Silence. "You are hiding something." "I'm hiding myself." "Then be careful. This place eats secrets. Slowly." That night, Ugo Chuku found himself pacing. He couldn't sleep again, not since he had dreamt of her, not since he had started watching her, like a man watches fire, mesmerized, but cautious not to burn. He brought her mangoes the next day. She refused them. "You think I'm hungry for fruit or for attention?" "I don't know what you're hungry for," he admitted, "but I think I'm hungry for you." She laughed, not cruelly, softly, like she had heard that line before. In a palace, from a prince who didn't mean it. "You don't know who I am," she whispered. "Then tell me." "No." "Why?" "Because you will not look at me the same." He was speechless. She walked away, again. And behind her, the anklet glinted once in the sunlight, like a signal from a forgotten kingdom. He spoke to Chidi that evening, told him about her. Chidi smiled, sadly. "You're falling for a housemaid?" "I don't care what she is. There's something about her. She could be lying or surviving. But what if she ruins you? What if she saves me?" That night, he saw her weeping under the pawpaw tree. He approached quietly. "Why are you crying?" She wiped her tears. "Because the wind carried your voice tonight, and it sounded like someone I used to love." He knelt beside her, gently. "I will never hurt you." She looked at him. "You already have, by noticing." Then she stood, walked into the darkness, and this time he didn't follow. Because for the first time, he felt afraid. Not of her, but of the truth he knew was coming. She had been betrothed once to a man with lion eyes and a crown of silver, in a compound larger than this village. A prince who had fallen in love with her words, not her wealth. But his mother had called her a distraction. A girl whose father sang with rebels does not marry a prince. So they took her voice from the records, burned the wedding clothes, sent her to the border in shame. She did not cry that day, but she kept the anklet, because it was the only thing that belonged to her, and not the story they forced her into. And now, here she was, in this compound, washing plates that once served food to her at state banquets. And a man was falling in love with her again. A man who didn't know that she once sat with queens. It was market day. The entire compound emptied. Ugo Chuku told his driver to bring the car. He had decided. "I want her to come with me," he said, "to the city." Mama Ada's face grew still. "She's not what she seems," she warned. "I know, and I don't care." She called Ijeoma, told her what he planned. Ijeoma looked up, calm, almost too calm. "Let him try," she said. "Let him drive me. I will show him something." That evening, they drove, past the palm groves, past the long stretches of quiet farmland. She gave directions, left, right, left again. He grew confused. "Where are we going?" She did not answer. Then they turned a corner, and the gates appeared. Tall gold, with twin lion crests. The driver slowed. The guards saluted. The gates opened, and Ugo Chuku froze. "Ugo Chuku," he whispered. "What is this?" She stepped out of the car. Her wrapper fell, and underneath she wore a silk blouse from a world he could never afford. He said, "I told you," she said gently, "you didn't know who I was." Then she walked in, The gates closed behind her, and Ugo Chuku sat there, mouth dry, heart racing. He had loved a housemaid, but the housemaid owned the palace. The compound fell silent that night. The moon rose, high and indifferent. Somewhere, a child's lullaby echoed. And in a mansion beyond the reach of local gossip, Ijeoma stood at her balcony, anklet blowing, hair loose, watching the stars like old friends. She did not smile. She did not weep. She simply was. A woman reborn, a name reclaimed, a myth confirmed.
A winding staircase kissed with gold, walls adorned with ancestral tapestries and old oil paintings. A massive chandelier loomed overhead, not just glittering, but glowing, as though alive with memory. Ugo Chuku stepped through the palace doors, unsure if his feet were worthy of the ground. 2 guards had asked for his name. They didn't recognize him, but she had waved them off. "He's with me," Ijeoma had said. And just like that, he entered into a world where even the silence had class. She didn't speak as she walked ahead, barefoot now, but regal, a robe of emerald wrapped across her shoulders. The silk danced with each step like it remembered the rhythm of royal drums. He followed her through corridor after corridor until they stopped before a massive portrait, a family, her family. She stood in front of it and said softly, "This is who I am." The painting was dusted with age, but preserved by dignity. A man in a red agbada stood at the center, eyes sharp, jaw like a chisel. Beside him, a woman sat elegantly, hands resting over her daughter's shoulders. That daughter was Ijeoma, but younger and smiling. The girl in the painting looked nothing like the woman beside him now. She was light, bright, untouched by betrayal. Ugo Chuku stepped back, his throat dry. You're the governor's daughter." She nodded, but her eyes were empty. Former governor, former father, former everything. "Ijeoma, why were you working in our compound? Why hide?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she walked to the window, watching servants in uniform scurry about the courtyard. Then finally, 3 years ago, she began, voice trembling, "I was supposed to marry a man chosen by my father, an oil magnate's son, a walking peacock who thought women were ornaments." Her hands clenched. I said no, not because I was rebellious, but because I had already met someone, a teacher from Kebbi, humble, brilliant, poor. Ugo Chuku leaned closer, every part of him tensed. My father said if I continued seeing him, he would disown me. I didn't believe him. I thought he would soften. She turned then, slowly, her eyes burning like hidden coals. He threw me out, froze my accounts, publicly claimed I was in Europe studying fashion, but really, I was sleeping in a cousin's store. From the daughter of power to a ghost. A silence stretched between them. I took the name Ijeoma because it meant the journey is good. I needed to believe that. And then she looked at him. "You were never supposed to see me. Not like that. Not in your house." He whispered, "But I did." News spread, as it always does in places guarded by silence. The palace's oldest matron, Madame Nkechi, heard the visitor had seen the portrait, heard he had walked in uninvited, but left changed. She summoned Ijeoma.
I raised you, the old woman said. Fed you melon soup when you cried in the dark. I wiped your shame when your father turned his back. Ijeoma stood quietly. Now you bring a man here without blood ties. He is different. Nkechi sniffed. They are always different until the gate opens. Then they forget your name and ask how much the house costs. He saw me before he saw this place. Good. Then take him to the corridor of questions. Ijeoma looked up, eyes narrowing. That place? Yes, Madame Nkechi said. Let him walk it. She took him by the hand, down a side hallway, narrower, darker, older. The walls were lined with framed items, letters, photos, headlines, love notes scribbled on brown paper, police reports, a hospital bill, a wedding card that was never delivered. She didn't explain each piece. She let him read, let him feel. Ugo Chuku's chest tightened with each step. A newspaper clipping. Governor's daughter reported missing, possible mental breakdown. A doctor's note. Anxiety, emotional trauma. Recommend withdrawal from high-pressure environments. A wedding card addressed to Ijeoma and Tolu, December 17th. And finally, a small envelope nailed to the wall. Inside, a faded photo. Her and the teacher laughing on a bench. Ugo Chuku stood frozen. I found him later, she said quietly. He had married, a good woman. He didn't wait, but I didn't blame him. She turned. Now, you know everything, so what do you feel? He couldn't answer, because everything he thought he knew about love was now shaking. That night, he dreamed. In his dream, he was not himself. He was the teacher, smiling beside Ijeoma, under the shade of a tamarind tree. She offered him ground nuts wrapped in a handkerchief. Ijeoma, he dreamed him, said, if I lose you, I'll never breathe the same again. She giggled. Then the sky darkened, guards came, hands pulled them apart. She screamed, and he faded. Ugo Chuku woke up sweating. It wasn't just jealousy, it was grief for a love he never had, but now inherited the ghost of. He waited until morning. Then he dressed in his finest white kaftan. He stood at the palace gates, just like she had stood at his family compound days ago. When the maid announced his presence, she didn't come immediately. He waited. Finally, she appeared at the balcony. Ijeoma, he said loudly, heart in his throat. I know I can't walk the path you walked. I don't have a crown. I don't have a story. But I want to learn your shadows. I want to walk your silence. She didn't speak. He took a step forward. I want to be the man who holds your hand, whether you wear wrapper or silk. Still, she said nothing. Until Madame Nkechi's voice broke the air. Then kneel. He dropped to one knee. Instantly. No pride, no hesitation. Ijeoma descended the staircase slowly. The guards watched. The wind paused. She stood before him, then slowly extended her hand. He took it, and for the first time, she smiled. Not sadly, not guardedly, but truly. That night, a flute played softly from somewhere unseen. Ijeoma walked through the palace garden, barefoot, trailing a robe of white. Beside her, Ugo Chuku walked silently, no longer confused, no longer afraid. In the center of the garden, they paused. He took her other hand, and just above them, the moon, full and white, looked down like an approving mother. No vows were spoken, no crowd, just wind and peace and healing. Days later, the palace courtyard shimmered in the twilight. Lamps of fireflies in crystal jars hovered in the air like floating spirits. Drummers sat in a slow circle. The rhythm was gentle, not celebratory, but ancestral. Guests whispered in awe as Ijeoma stepped out. She wore deep blue silk with coral beads in her hair. On her anklet, the golden anklet still clung, the same one Ugo Chuku had first glimpsed in the dust. Beside her, he stood, clean-shaven, dressed in soft gray agbada embroidered with silver thread. No chains, no sunglasses, no ego. Only humility. They stood before the elders, before the gods, before the memory of every version of themselves that had ever been lost. Tonight was not a wedding. No. This was a return of dignity, of self, of truth. And it would not come easily.
As the drums paused, the crowd settled. A royal figure stood, Chief Izenia, her uncle, flanked by palace wives in red wrappers and eagle feathers in their hair. His eyes moved from Ijeoma to Ugo Chuku. "So, this is the man?" he said flatly. "Yes, uncle," Ijeoma replied. Her voice held no tremor. "And you believe a man who mistook you for a housemaid is worthy to dine at this table?" Silence. Ugo Chuku spoke. "I do not seek the table. I only ask for a seat near her feet. Wherever she stands, that is where I wish to kneel." Murmurs, raised brows, a few hidden smiles. Izenia leaned back, watching the boy like one watches a snake pretending to sleep. He muttered, "Let us see." He signaled to the storyteller. An elder woman stepped forward, clutching a carved staff. She began. "There was a time," the storyteller began, "when names were songs, and the loudest names didn't always win." She pointed at Ijeoma. "Your name was once written on wedding cards, but now it is etched in battle scars." She turned to Ugo Chuku. "And you? You once laughed at villagers from tinted glass. You forgot your mother's waistline. You thought Lagos made you a man." Gasps. The truth stung. Ijeoma lost her crown. Ugo Chuku lost his path. But here they stand barefoot, asking not for a throne, but for peace. The drums resumed, slowly, softly. But Izenia raised a hand. "Even in peace, there is a price." He turned to Ijeoma. "Return your anklet. Let your name be buried. Choose love or royalty." Later, in her private chamber, Ijeoma sat before her mirror, the anklet on the table before her. Madame Nkechi entered. "You know what they want, to tame you, to fold you neatly into their version of loyalty." Ijeoma didn't speak. Nkechi walked to the window. "When I was young, I chose love, but I also chose silence. Years later, I realized I had given up my voice." She looked back. "Don't let them make you choose. Take both, or take none." Another voice spoke softly. From the shadows, her cousin Adanma stepped forward, the one who had once tried to replace her in politics. "You left. Now you return with a man from outside our circle?" "I returned with truth. If that threatens your crown, then maybe your crown was built on lies." The women locked eyes. It was not war. It was recognition. Ugo Chukwu walked the corridor alone again.
But this time, the walls whispered differently. They were no longer walls of shame, but of memory. He paused before the photo of Ijeoma and the teacher, touched it. Then he did something unexpected. He added his own, a photo printed that morning of her washing yams in his family compound. He had taken it silently long before he understood her. He placed it on the wall, beside hers. Let the corridor hold both truths.
As night deepened, the storyteller resumed, but not for the guests. This story was for them. She spoke of a young woman who once defied her father, hoping that love alone could be her home. She spoke of betrayal, not just from others, but from fate itself. She spoke of waiting, of losing, of walking barefoot across lands where no one knew your name. And then she spoke of return, of finding someone who didn't see your past, your future, or your title, just your present pain, and choosing that person over silence. The next morning, before the elders and gods, Ijeoma stepped forward, barefoot. She held the anklet in one hand. She said, "I was told to choose, royalty or love." She looked at the elders, then at Ugo Chuku, and said, "But I am not a child asking permission. I am a woman reclaiming her rhythm." She tied the anklet to her waist beads, not her ankle. "I wear both, the girl who scrubbed yams and the queen they tried to erase." Then she walked to Ugo Chuku and took his hand. "If you will walk beside me, not in front, not behind, then walk now." He did not hesitate. He stepped forward. Together, they turned and faced the court, not begging, but ready. In the distance, the wind carried a flute melody, one no one remembered learning, but everyone knew. The palace gates opened wide, not to let someone in, but to let a story fly out. A girl who had been a ghost, a man who had been blind, a truth that had waited long enough. And in that garden where stars watched from above, two hands stayed interlocked, not because they were perfect, but because they had seen each other fully, finally. So my people, tell me now, if your identity was taken from you, but your love gave you a new one, which would you keep? Would you reclaim the crown or rewrite the story? If you enjoyed this story, please hit the like button, subscribe, and share it with your friends. Someone out there might need to hear it. Thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate your time and support. See you in the next story.